good lifers, welcome back to the channel. It's wonderful to have you here. So last year my garden actually threw us a couple of setbacks and a couple of curveballs and actually a few downright disasters, but every single setback is a learning opportunity in disguise. So that is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. Some little tips, some tricks that I've learned along the way, and hopefully some of these things are going to help me and to help you to make sure that your 2025 garden is the best garden that you're going to have. So one of the first lessons that actually I hadn't really thought about until I sat down to do this video is actually waiting a little bit longer to put seedlings out. I am one of those people that is so super excited to get seedlings going. As soon as they look kind of vaguely okay, I'm going to try and get them outside. And what I found last year, especially with the fact that we couldn't get down to our allotment like a lot, was the fact that I'd put new seedlings out and then they'd get eaten by slugs and I wouldn't have the new ones to replace them because I'd already started on loads of other seedlings. So this year I've got two options for this. I'm going to wait a little bit longer to put the seedlings out, make sure they've got their proper leaves and all the rest of it like you're actually supposed to do. But what I'm also looking to do is I'm going to get a load of the coconut coir pellets to grow in because I think they're going to be revolutionary. I've really wanted to try them for a while and I found somewhere that I can get absolutely loads of them. So I'm going to get a load of them and I'm going to try and start my seedlings in them. It means that I can cram a load more into the polytunnel or to the greenhouse, depending on what one I decide to get in a new garden. I can cram a lot more in, which means I can get a lot more growing. I want to be very, very intentional on the watering as well, so I can make sure that we've got different slots and timings. I talked to you in a video a few weeks ago about succession planting, how we're trying to do that, and we are, but it was very difficult down in our last garden because we weren't there as often to monitor it all. This time I'm really hoping to be there a bit more, so being able to succession plant properly is going to make a real difference. Getting those seedlings in, getting them growing nice and strong, and then getting them out when the timing's right is actually going to make a big difference. So lesson number one is to make sure that your seedlings are actually big enough to go out and strong enough to go out before you plant them out. The second big lesson that I learned from last year was that I didn't actually get time to build up all of the supports and trellises that I wanted to build. I didn't actually get time to do most of it. I had some, but not nearly enough. So this year, that's something that I really want to look into doing. By the time things like my peas started growing and my beans started growing, they ended up getting a little bit choked up because I didn't have any trellises to grow up. So that is definitely something I want to be doing this year, is to try and make sure I get those trellises built in the first place, get all the support structures up and ready to go, rather than have to kind of like retrofit them, which really doesn't work. I found that out. That actually ties into the third thing that I learned, which was give peas a lot of space. Give peas a chance. So the third thing that I learned was that peas do actually need a lot more space. What I actually did was I had like a half of one of my beds just like with peas. The problem is, as anyone knows who's grown peas, once they got to a certain length, and the fact that I hadn't really built the trellises properly, they just kind of flopped around everywhere and it was just a complete nightmare trying to actually harvest from them. So what I'm going to try and do in 2025's garden is, we've got a long fence in a new house. What I'm planning to do is hopefully actually put all of my pea plants in a 1 foot row across the fence, so they're all growing up the fence. So I'm going to put a trellis along the fence, and then I'm hopefully going to put the pea plants on the fence like that. That's the plan anyway. Hopefully that'll work out. Obviously I'll take you with me for the whole journey, so do make sure you stick around if you want to see whether or not that works or doesn't work. We will find out eventually. But yeah, that's my idea, to try and give them a little bit more space and give them the height that they actually need, which should hopefully make harvesting a lot easier. And I love peas, so anything to get peas working and peas growing properly, I am there. Just a quick interruption. It would be absolutely amazing if you could subscribe to the channel. This channel is all about homesteading and self-sufficiency skills on a normal budget, in a normal house, in a normal sized garden, normal people doing all the things. And obviously we're based in the UK, so if you are based in the UK as well and you want some practical homesteading tips and a little bit of guidance on becoming a little bit more self-sufficient and self-reliant in your life, this is what this channel is all about. So please hit subscribe. I would absolutely love it if you could. It would make me smile. And don't you want to make me smile? Okay, so number 4 is kind of related to the peas and the trellis problem. I had lots of vining plants last year, so I had the peas and I had the beans and things like that. But what I've decided is actually bean wise, I'm going to grow more dwarf beans because dwarf French beans are amazing. They grow up to about that big, it's probably about a foot tall, and then they kind of come out like that, and then all of the bean pods are just there ready to go. I really like dwarf plants. They're a lot less difficult to manage. They're a lot less unwieldy than your normal vining beans. So I think I might have grow a few vining beans as well because I've got an idea again for an archway in some raised beds if I can get them in time. But I think actually dwarf French beans in plants like that would do a really, really good job because then I don't have to worry about having to have too many supports and everything around for them. That's my theory. And I've always actually had pretty good success with dwarf French beans. So grow more dwarf plants. That that is my plan, hopefully, for yeah, that's number 4 anyway. Grow more dwarf plants. Number 5 is one thing that I definitely learnt from my garden last year was that I do actually need to really focus on the 15-minute jobs that I need to do. I did a whole video actually on half an hour jobs, but it's the kind of the 10-15 minute jobs, like the little tiny bits of weeding or the just kind of building a quick trellis here and there, just making sure the pathways are clear. Those little tiny things, a little bit of mulching here and there, those things add up so much. The problem we had last year was that we couldn't get down to the allotment very often, which meant that all of those little kind of 10-minute jobs had to be saved up for the weekend. And by then, some disasters happened because we couldn't do the 10-minute jobs that would have prevented the disaster happening. And it's just a bit of a nightmare. So I'm really hoping in this year's garden that because I've got the garden in the garden, as it were, the vegetable patch in the garden, in my breaks and all the other bits and pieces like that, I can just nip out and do those little tiny things that I need to do. I think it's going to make the world of difference. And that is definitely something I learned from last year's garden is the fact that all of those little jobs, you do need to be on top of them. And I know that sounds so obvious, but if you're on top of them, then you've got time to do the bigger jobs later on, which is like really, really important. Then you can actually organize all the bigger jobs, which is something I never really got round to. So that's one of the things I learned. Do make sure you do all the little jobs so that you've got then room and space to do the bigger jobs that you want to do. And the very last thing that I learnt from my garden last year was that I actually really enjoy being in the garden, which means that although we've just talked about how much work needs to be done, how much planning needs to be done, all the rest of it, it's not all work. Just sitting and enjoying the garden. It's amazing when you just walk through. You can see all the bugs on the plants and hopefully the good bugs. You can see all the bugs on the plants, all the wildlife. You can see all the different bits living. You can see how things change. Like some plants can change like within a 24-hour time frame. They just change. It's like a tomato, you go out and you've got loads of green ones, and then suddenly the next day there's like one red one. It makes a huge difference. It's like, yes, you can feel that change. So something I have learned from last year's garden is I need to be a little bit more present in this year's garden. And by present, I kind of mean a little bit more mindful in this year's garden. So actually going out with intention to just enjoy it. Sit there, watch what's going on, observe, be a good observer of your garden. So that's what we're going to try and do a lot more this year is really good observations. I do have a hope and a plan to try and set up some cameras as well so we can get a lot more kind of time lapse stuff and you can actually see a lot more growth happening. So that's one of the plans. Whether or not that's going to happen, I've got a lot of plans and there's a lot going on, but hopefully that's going to happen when we move into our new house. So we shall see. Hopefully that'll be something that we can do. Well, thank you very much for joining me, folks, today. It has been absolutely lovely to have you along, as it always is as well. We've got loads coming up in the next few weeks, which I can't wait to share with you. We have got a whole video coming up about budgeting for the homestead and for the self-reliance things, because as you've just realised, I've got a lot of plans, but the budget doesn't stretch to all of them. So how are we going to be looking at budgeting for that? I've also got a little bit of a thing about my wish list for my new garden and some of the things that I'm hoping for. So that's something that hopefully you'll get really inspired by it as well. And I'm also hoping to take you along to show you what sort of seeds I'm hoping to plan for the next year. I'm desperately hoping to avoid planting any until February. However, we shall see. The move is kind of is imminent, so fingers crossed. So that's something we are definitely looking forward to. And as soon as I move, I'm going to be showing you around my new house and taking you along for all of the different journeys and projects that we've got going. It's such an exciting year. Honestly, 2025 is looking so exciting. I actually can't wait. So please join us, and I really enjoyed you being here, and thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.